This week on The Destination Angler.
You get guys that aren't as accustomed to fighting 20-pound fish on a fly rod. And, I mean, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. If the fish wants to run, you got to let him run. And if people don't let the fish run, they're gone every time.
What do they do? They grab the line or they just...
Grab the line. People have this huge fish hooked on here, and they're like, oh, my gosh, I have to stop it. And then the fish is gone.
And what are you yelling at? What are you saying?
Let go of the reel, let go of the reel, let go of the reel.
Run, let it run, let it run, let it run,
let it run.
And that was Tom and Max Werkman on the Grand River in Michigan. Hey, if you like the show, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and share the podcast with a buddy. Welcome to the Destination Angler Podcast, the podcast for anglers who travel. And I'm your host, Steve Haig. We go right to the source, the local guides and experts, to build your knowledge of top fishing locations around North America. It's a big world out there. Now go and fish it.
I'm going away for a while, but I'll be back soon. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey anglers, welcome back to another episode of the Destination Angler, brought to you by Trout Routes, the #1 fishing app, helping trout anglers avoid the crowds and explore new public water. Download it today in the App Store today and get 20% off using promo code DESTINATION20. By Adams Built Fishing Gear, the trusted source for quality fly fishing gear built to last at an affordable price. And by Got Fishing, crafting world-class fly fishing adventures specially designed to your level of experience and budget. Up next on the Destination Angler, we head out west for some off-the-beaten-path fly fishing on the beautiful Caneyos River in Colorado. Then we venture to the land of fire and ice. That's Iceland for some incredible Atlantic salmon, brown trout, and Arctic char fly fishing. Be sure to backcast to catch the last episode on Jurassic Lake, Patagonia, Argentina, with lodge owner Lucho Alba. Jurassic Lake is famous for a prehistoric-sized rainbow trout, and some say the largest in the world. Lucho explains how these fish grow to such enormous proportions and shares tips on how to land these giants with more moves than Lionel Messi. Want to be the first to know about new episodes? Well, head on over to the Destination Angler website and sign up. And today our destination is Michigan's Grand River with expert fly fishing guides Tom and Max Werkman, the father-son team behind Werkman Outfitters and RiverQuest Charters, Grand Rapids, Michigan. The Grand is Michigan's longest river, and it's loaded with steelhead, salmon, and smallmouth. The story of the Grand is one of ruin to recovery, and today it's fishing better than ever. Tom and Max share the ins and outs of the Grand and its tributaries, the seasons, food sources, top fly patterns and rigs, and answers the age-old question, what are the conditions that draw salmon and steelhead into the river system? And the answer might surprise you. Stick around to the end for pro tips on how to make a father-son partnership such a success. Hey, grab your 8-weight and your winter coat as we chase chrome with Tom and Max. All right, folks, really excited today. I'm joined by Tom and Max Werkman, a father and son team, and they guide folks on the Grand River and the Muskegon Rivers in Michigan. Welcome to the show, Tom and Max.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. You bet. So Tom's a co-owner in Werkman Outfitters and another company called RiverQuest Charters, which we'll hear a little bit more about in a little bit here. And he's also a recovering banker of 25 years. So I think there's a story there. Something about a boss who didn't like you running a company that fly fish. I don't know. We'll hear more about that.
It's probably pretty close.
Okay. And you've been guiding the Grand and his trips for a long time. You do bass, pike, steelhead, 10 years and fishing them for a lot longer, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yep.
And Max, you also are I guess you're the other owner.
Co-owner, partially, yes.
Okay, all right. Nice dad. Let him in on the action.
I know, right? It's nice of me, huh?
Right?
Yeah, the whole thing with this business is you just don't get one, you get both.
Yep, both of us.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. A twofer. So, Max, I believe you specialize in the cold water species, salmon, trout, steelhead, and do a lot on the Muskegon, correct?
Yep, I split my time between the Muskegon and the Grand.
Okay.
It just kind of depends on the time of year that I'm fishing around here. But yeah, when you look at kind of how we operate things, I mostly do the cold water side of things, and then my dad does most of the warm water side of things.
Okay. Yeah, because steelhead fishing, you kind of have to be miserable to go steelhead fishing, don't you?
Yeah, sometimes. Yes, I know it.
So he lets you do that.
I know, right? He just puts me out there in the crappy conditions, and the cold and the wind and the rain, huh?
Right?
Yeah, but you also
Right?
like it.
I do too like it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do like fishing for steelhead.
He's not twisting your arm. You actually like doing this, huh?
No, I actually do. Yes, yep. I
Okay.
thoroughly enjoy the misery of steelhead fishing sometimes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. You forget all about that when you got to steal that in the end of the line, don't you?
I know, right? You happen to warm up, and it's all fun and games and
Right.
everything when you actually find a tangle a few of them.
But numb, wet fingers all day become warm and cozy with a
I know,
steelhead on
right?
the
And it
line.
happens immediately too when you hook one.
And you become everybody's best friend all of a sudden.
I know, right? The boat
All
mood
right.
goes from happy real quick.
Right. So your dad says you've been fishing since you could walk. So I imagine you've got a picture holding a fishing rod when you were like 2 or
Oh
something.
man, I my earliest memories I can always remember fishing with my dad, especially the neighborhood ponds that we grew up in, the neighborhoods we lived in. I mean, I can always remember fishing those from such a young age.
That's cool. That's great. And you go to Alaska in the summers, is that right?
I do, yes. I spend about 4 months or so in Alaska throughout the summer. I do May or late May through early October season up there, and I've been doing that for almost 10 years now.
Wow. Good for you. How do
Yeah.
you like it?
I love it. Every minute
Yeah.
of it. Yeah. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't go back. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love going there. It's such a wild place and such cool fisheries and pristine fisheries that I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah, literally at 18 years old, I shipped you on a plane up to
I know,
Alaska.
I graduated high school,
What?
and 2 weeks later, I was working in Alaska. Yep.
Your dad said, "Here, get on this plane, get out of here, go to
That's
Alaska."
Yeah. The guy that I work for
You're off
up
the
there.
payroll now.
I know, right? The guy that I work for up there, both Dad and I have known him years prior to me working there, and it
Yeah.
just happened to work out in my favor that I got to work there for a summer, and I enjoyed it so much that I keep going back.
Yeah. What a dad.
I know,
That's
right?
cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. So, a little bit about the Grand River. I'm gonna let you guys talk a whole lot more about it, but just to set it up, it's Michigan's longest river, 250 miles ish.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think it's like 252 miles or something like that.
252.
Yep, pretty close to that. Yep.
Don't want to miss that extra 2 miles.
I know. Not to be technical about things.
That's good.
And it's Michigan's second largest drainage system next to the Saginaw Valley, which is Michigan's largest drainage system. And so what ends up happening with it being, the longest river and the second largest drainage, is that when you have a rain event that happens along the 96 corridor, boy, it can it can blow it out, it can make it good, or it can make it really bad. So it just depends on a number of factors. And I think that's part of the reason why we like fishing the Grand, is the challenge of the big water.
Mm-hmm. It's big water.
Yeah. Like how big? I mean, I've seen it, but for my audience, how big is the water?
Yeah, when we're fishing our smallmouth sections of the Grand, you're maybe looking at 400 yards wide, 400 or 500 yards wide. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're looking down in some of our steelhead sections, we fish closer towards the lake, maybe like just downstream from Grand Rapids. I mean, it's a couple hundred yards wide. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a wide river.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's an urban river too, right? I mean,
It is,
a lot of it.
yes.
Yeah, it starts up in Livingston County, I believe, and then it winds its way down through Lansing, down into Grand Rapids, and then the confluence hits Lake Michigan in Grand Haven, is
Yeah.
what it does. And so basically, you have, and I've seen the headwaters of the Grand River, and it is literally no bigger than a rowboat where it starts, and then it just winds and snakes, and it picks up steam as it keeps going down through those major urban areas. And then it hits the deltas and the bayous in Spring Lake, and that can be some really good warm water fishery down there with pike and with bass and bowfin. Some of the alternative species that we also target on a fly rod, we'll target down there as well too. But you also get, one of the things I think that's really nice about the Grand River is, particularly in the sections that we fish in and around the greater Grand Rapids area. And those include Lowell, the city of Lowell, the city of Ada. And really, these are more suburbs of Grand Rapids. And just to give your viewers perspective, within that metropolitan statistical area, you have over 1 million people that live within the greater Grand Rapids area.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it's a lot bigger than I thought.
Yeah, it's quite big, and I think the thing that most people, when we take them on trips, whether they're clients and people that live in Grand Rapids or people that come in for business trips, they'll call us up and we'll take them on the river fishing, where people just come from out of the area just to fish the Grand River. The thing that we hear the most is we can't believe we're literally 15 minutes from downtown Grand Rapids, and it literally feels like you're in this rural area community where you don't see hardly anything.
Cool.
The vast majority of the sections that we fish are floodplain, and they'll never be developed. And so people really kind of get this rural experience that's out there. And a lot of times when we get out of the city, depending on the time of year, we're the only boat fishing the Grand River for smallmouth or steelhead for quite a long ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even during steelhead season?
Steelhead seasons, it kind of varies in the amount of people that we see. When we have higher water events and we have to fish in the city of Grand Rapids, it's a pretty busy fishery. I mean, we see quite a few boats in the city, but if we choose to fish steelhead above or below Grand Rapids, we sometimes rarely ever see people fishing there. Maybe one other boat for a competitor, but outside of the city limits of Grand Rapids, there's very few people that actually fish that system.
So people like fishing in the city. Why do they like fishing? Why not get out in the country?
So the number one reason is there's a dam in the city. There's a dam that stops the fish there. Now the fish can get past that dam. There's a fish ladder system that they can get over, or if we have high enough water, the fish can blatantly jump the dam. But that dam slows the fish down and they stop their migration, at least for cold water species, upstream. So that's why the city fishing is very popular, is because there's a dam right there to fish
There's
by.
a big dam and there's a bunch of fish all stacked up next to the dam. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And like Max said, the vast majority of the time, if we're able to, we avoid all that congestion that happens at the dam. We have spots that we fish where there's very few boats that we'll see within that system, and that just keeps us and our clients away from all that
the debauchery that occurs downtown.
Not just crowds, but debauchery, huh?
It's
not
downtown Grand Rapids, man. There's all kinds of stuff.
No, not in GR, man. GR, you guys, this is the Bible Belt over there. This is Michigan's Bible Belt. There's no debauchery in Grand Rapids. Come on now.
Just a little bit, then.
It literally is the urban jungle.
Yeah. But yeah, I have driven over that. Is it the 6th Street Bridge? I forget.
Yes. Yep.
I've driven over that a million times. I've got customers up that way, and looked down at that river and thought, this is supposed to be a really good, steelhead river, and I'm usually not there right now. Where November 14th, steelheads, is it going pretty good right now?
This year it's actually been pretty good for us. Last year, we had a lot of strange conditions last year with our winter time frame and our fall time frame. And last year was a little bit of a struggle for us, just numbers wise. But this year's been significantly better than previous years. And I mean, it's been a good fall run of steelhead for us. We have water here. We have had rain. Yeah. We have rain coming, and we can maintain a good water level. It's been a pretty good fall for us so far for steelhead.
But go figure, we had the worst conditions for steelhead. We had super low, clear water, high skies, warm, but yet it turned out to be one of the best years for the early steelhead run coming in. It was great
October.
This fall.
Okay. This fall. Yeah.
Worst conditions possible for steelhead, and yet it was the best run.
They were there.
Run we've
seen. Yep.
But you had water though, because you got to have water. They won't come in.
So we typically start fishing steelhead like late October, like mid-late October time frame. Yeah. Once our king salmon, our cohos are spawning in our peak spawn time frame, we start running eggs behind all the spawning salmon. And when we started for steelhead in late October, we had abnormally low water conditions, very warm water. And like my dad said, no clouds for days. And for whatever reason, the fish came.
Wow.
And since we had a really big rain event about 10 days ago, and we had really good bump in water and flows, and the fish have stayed around, and it's been great.
Wow.
He actually came back from Alaska, and we had our first group trip together. And I remember that like the first, like within, I don't know, half an hour of the first trip, it was early in the morning. He sends me a text and goes, "Hi, I got steelhead." And
I
I'm
caught a
like,
steelhead.
he goes, "I caught a steelhead." I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's great, sweet." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to switch over," because we were fishing for salmon, and I'm going to switch over. He was using an indicator rig. And so I told my guys, I said, "We're going to bead drift here, and we're gonna catch some steelhead." And so like the first pass down, that pole went down, and that thing just took off like a lightning bolt. And we ended up landing first fish,
First steelhead of the year. Yep.
first steelhead of the year.
Wow.
And we ended up landing it. So I had to show him who top dog was.
He outfished me like 2 days in a row.
So I sent him a text and I just said, "Yeah, look what I just got." And
it was bigger than the one that I caught too.
And all that stuff. So yeah,
I can imagine the dinner conversation at your house. No, I got the biggest fish.
I love it, man. I love the friendly competition between us.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much
fun. Did you guys used to wrestle when you're years ago when he was a little kid?
Oh God, yeah. I can remember being a kid picking on Dad, and he'd be like, "All right, I really get to show you who top dog is now. Who's really in charge."
Clear the furniture out of the living room and boom.
Exactly.
We've done that a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good for you guys. Do you struggle finding new trout streams to explore? Tired of stumbling around country roads looking for access points? Looking to escape the crowds? Then look no further, because Trout Routes has meticulously mapped and classified over 50,000 trout streams covering the entire lower 48, including 350,000 hand-curated public access points marked and ready for you to explore. I'm a huge fan of Trout Routes because they make it so easy to explore new trout waters. Many times, Trout Routes has helped me find new public water and get into fish fast. And the good folks at Trout Routes have been busy this winter making Trout Routes even better. Enter Stream Cards 2.0, the latest iOS release that brings together more info at your fingertips by organizing data like stream flows, access laws, nearest fly shops into easily accessible tabs for every river and stream in the app. And now you can check real-time stream height and flow rates with river data from stream gauges and compare those with historical data to spot trends. Pretty cool, huh? Planning a trip? Well, you'll love the advanced filter features that let you hone in on top-rated streams, boat ramps, camping spots, and more. So what are you waiting for? Start exploring today by downloading Trout Routes on your Apple or Android phone. Hey anglers, if you're on the hunt for fishing gear that's as tough as you are, look no further than Adams Built Fishing Gear. Since 2014, Adams Built has been the go-to choice for anglers who demand quality without breaking the bank. Their lineup of lightweight waders, high-quality nets, and meticulously designed fly boxes is second to none. But here's what really impressed me. Adams Built stands behind their products like no other. Every single item is guaranteed to last. Yep, you heard that right. And get this, Adams Built waders even come with a lifetime repair replace guarantee, with you only paying for shipping. Now that's a deal you can't beat. So why settle for gear that won't last? Make the smart choice and gear up with Adams Built Fishing Gear today. Ask your local dealer for Adams Built or visit www.adamsbuiltfishing.com and tell them Steve sent you from the Destination Angler podcast. Back to something you said earlier about how you can feel, like, I don't know how many miles from town, it feels super remote. Max, did you tell me when we talked earlier that you've seen bear tracks along the Grand, just outside of Grand Rapids?
No, that was me. It was on the sandbar. We were up between Lowell and Saranac, and during the low water time during the summer, there's sandbars that form, and there's actually black bear tracks that I've seen on the river. And we see all kinds of wildlife. I mean, there's a lot of bald eagles. There's osprey. We see a lot of deer, foxes, coyotes. I mean,
raccoons at one time fishing Ada together.
Raccoons, otters, Grand River otters, and I think the thing that with it being an urban fishery, that one of the things that we kind of fight a little bit is there's still this stigma attached with the Grand River of all that's in there are carp and suckers.
It's a dirty river.
There's this perception that it's this dirty, polluted river, and really the river is one of ruin to recovery. And the Grand River is actually in fantastic shape. It's probably in the best shape it's ever been in decades. And that goes to a lot of money and science being used to improve the Grand River. And I always find it funny when people say that it's just, loaded with carp and suckers. And actually, suckers need good water, highly oxygenated water. It can't be polluted. There's got to be a lot of microinvertebrates for them to feed on in there. And so they're really a canary species that's in there. And so when we see suckers, that's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. We have multi-year bait classes that are in there. We have multi-year fish classes that are in there. The fish are healthy. The bass are, the pike are. It really is a really good fishery. And if people would just take the time and just kind of understand it and just explore it, they would realize what a phenomenal urban and suburban fishery that river really is.
So when you're, I don't know, at a party or something and you tell people, yeah, I'm a guide on the Grand River, what kind of comments do you get?
Usually it's like, oh my gosh, I want your job.
Oh, it's like, right. Okay.
Yeah. Or
I wish I could go fishing every day.
Yeah. Will you take me tomorrow?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Or it's like, ooh, I never, I mean,
that's kind of the thing.
That?
Yeah. That's kind of the thing is it's like that you kind of factor to it. Like, oh, you fish the Grand. And it's, again, that misconception that people have that it's just a dirty river. And I think a lot of that misconception comes from, like we were talking earlier, Steve, that it's the largest drainage in the state, or the longest river in the state, second largest drainage. And I mean, there's so much sediment that comes down that river that it appears dirty, but it's just sediment from runoff and stuff, from rain events, from snowmelt.
Yeah.
It's not truly a dirty river.
No, we've seen it everywhere from where it's chocolate milk to where it's gin clear.
Gin clear, and you can see 5, 6, 10 feet down to the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, can you catch steelhead when it's probably not chocolate milk, but when it's muddy?
Yeah, there comes a point when it's unfishable.
Yeah, okay.
In my life of fishing the Grand, I've seen it as low as 1,300 CFS, and I've seen it as high as 20,000 CFS.
Oh,
we
really?
had to blow out one time at like 75,000 CFS.
Yeah, there was a year that, if you remember from being downtown before, Steve, or like going over the bridges, going over the Grand, there was a year that we had a major flood event and the water was to the bridges. Like the city was concerned about the water blowing the bridges out. I mean, there was a picture on Facebook circulating around and during that high water event years ago of a guy in his office building on the ground level of the along the Grand River, and he took a picture, and there's a northern pike swimming in front of his office window.
What? Come on, you must be in Michigan, man.
I know, right?
Only in Michigan. But 70,000. What? You remember the Yellowstone like 2 or 3 years ago when it was up to 70,000? I mean, that was
huge amounts of water. Huge amounts of water.
Wow.
But that just shows you that, the power of that river. It was in the springtime, we had, major snow event followed up by a major rain and melt event. And that just blew it up. And, it took a long time for it to calm back down.
But like you're saying, Steve, we can catch steelhead in dirty water there for sure. There just comes a point when there's too much water coming down that river. And then it's just kind of considered unfishable for us.
Yeah.
Typically, we don't really fish the Grand above like 8,000-9,000 CFS coming over the dam. At that point, the volume of water coming down is too much to fish. So then we just go to the Muskegon River. But I mean, we can catch steelhead in the Grand when you can't see 6 inches in front of your face. Yeah. You just got to kind of adjust your presentations and what you want to run for them. And it's challenging. Don't get me wrong. It's challenging, but it can be done.
Cool. Tom, go back to this recovery story. Can you give us a little more info on that?
Yeah. So basically, when Grand Rapids was being built, they used the Grand River as a dumping ground, particularly for the sewage. If you look along when you come into downtown Grand Rapids and you look on the river, there's the 6th Street Dam, and then you have these little mini dams that are called coffers. And a lot of that was used to divert the river to get the quarry stone out of there to help build Grand Rapids, but also they dumped their sewer in there. And during the summertime, they had to, it stunk, so they had to capture the water and hold it so it wouldn't stink as bad.
Sounds awful.
So it started with that, and then as industry grew, then they, manufacturing and all of that, they started dumping heavy metals and compounds into the river. And then as Grand Rapids continued to grow, they separated their no, they did not separate their sewer from their runoff. And so basically, when you had heavy rains, there was a combined sewage overflow that would dump, raw sewage into the river. Now that has since been cleaned up. I think Grand Rapids is I don't think they've had any combined sewer overflows, and neither has the city of Lansing. And then over time, all those heavy metals have been buried in the sediment over time. And so as long as that sediment doesn't become disturbed, you have a pretty, it's not pristine by any means, but you have a much cleaner river system than what you've had in the past.
Okay. How many years ago was that? You talk back like in the 1960s when that was going on?
Hey, probably that time or even earlier.
Oh, the combined sewage overflow, that was going on probably in the early 2000s, I bet still.
Oh, wow.
Even then, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
late 90s, early 2000s, I bet. I remember reading about it as a kid. I could be wrong on that, but definitely that's more recent than when industry was being built around there.
Right.
In the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then, then the clean water laws come into place and all of that stuff. And that's really helped and benefited the river. There's actually not really a governing body, but a scientific body called the Lower Grand River Organization of Watersheds, which we support. And they do every year testing and monitoring of the Grand River. And over the years, you can see how much the river has really improved, particularly from an aquatic species standpoint. It's in good shape.
Nice.
Now we just have to keep it that way.
Then you've got the largest steelhead run in the state. Is that correct?
You can argue it could be, when you look at the Grand as far as the distance that those fish can travel, there's a lot of water those fish can go up. The 6th Street Dam, those fish can get past. The dam that's in Lansing is unpassable for those fish.
Oh, it is.
So the largest steelhead run, numbers wise, we truly don't know how many fish come back to the river on a year basis.
Yeah.
But just because of how vast that system is, a lot of fish can swim that river. And we find that a lot of the numbers days that we have with steelhead occur more on the Grand just because of the mass of fish that migrate through Grand Rapids and through the Grand.
Okay.
And to the tributaries, too, within the Grand.
Here's Brian Oakland, founder of Got Fishing.
There's really no reason for an angler not to use Got Fishing when everything we do for you is free. We have the best trips around the world. We only work with the best outfitters, and we're definitely going to get you the best deal and the best dates guaranteed. That's why we have clients come back time and time again. We have Don with us on this trip. This has been his 6th fishing adventure with Got Fishing, and I think if you asked him, it is because of all the little things. We don't tell people, we ask questions. What is it that you're looking for? What would be most important to you? Who's coming with you? What's your experience level? And really at the end of the day, what is the most important aspect of this experience that you're looking to take home? And then from there, we just marry them up with some of the best lodges, let them take a look at 2 or 3 different options and pick what's going to be best for them.
Well, there you have it, folks. A pretty good case for choosing Got Fishing for your next big adventure. So what are you waiting for? Give Brian a shout or visit gotfishing.com. Talk about those trips. Yeah, can you fish those? Or can you get up there? Or?
Yeah. God, I couldn't even tell you how many tributaries there are. I mean, there's so many small creek ditches to full-size rivers that come into the Grand. Some of the more popular ones are the Rogue, the Thornapple, the Flat River. Those are some of the more major tributaries that come in there. And obviously steelhead go up all of those tributaries. And even in the summer months, those are some of our best smallmouth fisheries, are those tributaries to the Grand. But I can remember years that I've walk and wade fished creeks in Saranac and Lyons and places in there that get salmon, steelhead, and all those things that run up there. And that's the majority of where the spawning occurs for those migratory species, is up those real small tributaries.
And there's some real good cold water. There's some good cold water feeder creeks that come into there that don't have
names. They just don't have names.
And they got trout in them, like resident trout.
Some of them do. The more popular trout fishery is a tributary to a tributary. It's called the cold water. You can't float it. It's purely a walk and wade fishery. And that's really the only trout fishery that we find on the Grand. but it's not something that's really a part of our program for out there.
Okay. Do you have some lake run browns that come in?
We do. It's pretty rare to find a lake run that comes up there, but we do get them. And in my times of steelhead fishing downtown, I've seen a few, but again, not many of them. Majority of those lake runs come in the fall time frame. Our trout spawn in the November, early December months here, so they're just coming up from the lake to spawn, and then they turn around and go right back to the lake after they're done.
Pretty quick.
Yep.
What's the story with, I read 252 dams on the Grand and all the tributaries.
Yeah.
It's a pretty close number. I mean, when you look at even one of the tributaries that we fished, the Flat, I mean, how many dams are on the Flat? Six of them. I mean, there's quite a few.
What's it do to the fishing with all those dams?
It actually makes it really good.
It's a give and take. It's a give and take. For our warm water species, it helps us out. For our cold water species, they can't migrate past those dams, so they get stuck at the first ones.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Don't you just wonder what were people thinking? This back in the 30s and 40s?
Like, there's a tributary to the Grand that we smallmouth fish. It's called the Flat River. And this is like our trophy smallmouth sections, if you'd call it that. And you float those smallmouth sections and you look at the gravel on the bottom of the river and it's like, man, why can't there be steelhead that come all the way up here? Yeah. But there's so many dams that block them.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, that's a great story. You know, I love it that this river's doing so well now. And you guys you and a lot of other people able to get out and make a living on it.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of back to the major sections of the river. So I'm guessing there's a section below Grand Rapids, there's Grand Rapids, and there's some things between Grand Rapids and Lansing. Is that right? How do you break it down?
So we break it down basically for where we fish. It's pretty much going to be anywheres from Ionia, which is going to be further towards Lansing. So you have, and it really breaks it down by the boat launches. So you have a launch in Ionia, and you're traveling downriver now towards Lake Michigan. Starts in Ionia, it goes to Saranac, goes to Lowell, goes to Ada, goes to
West
River, Riverside, and then you go over the 6th Street Dam, and then you hit Johnson Park. And pretty much from all those sections right there, we will fish depending on the time of year and what species we're targeting. So we'll probably cover 80 river miles.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of river miles is what we'll cover. And then even early season, I could be down in the bayous chasing after northern pike down and through there. And so we're down there then in the March, April timeframe as well. That's
cool. Yeah. How is access? I imagine a river the size, you kind of need a boat. Can you wade?
Yeah. The tributaries are great wade accessible rivers. There are small walk and wade rivers, and you can float a raft down the majority of those tributaries.
Or a canoe or kayak.
Canoe, kayaks, anything. But the main stem of the Grand is basically a boat access.
Okay.
There's tons of boat launches all throughout the whole system, but it's not really a walk and wade type of river.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at downtown Grand Rapids, fishing below 6th Street Dam, great walk and wade fishery. Obviously, you got to pay attention to the river levels. We don't want to be fishing it in 20,000 CFS. But when we have low water, I mean, the last couple of weeks, we haven't been able to get a boat into downtown Grand Rapids. And there's been dozens and dozens and dozens of people wade fishing downtown Grand Rapids for steelhead lately.
Wow. How about that? Right below the Gerald R. Ford Museum.
Yep, all right along that whole section of the Grand. It's maybe about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile section for downtown, but in lower water scenarios, that's all very accessible to wade fishermen.
As a matter of fact, during the summer, if I got a meeting in Grand Rapids and I have a couple hours to spare, I'll go wet wade during the summer for bass and pike right downtown. Yeah. People look at me kind of funny that I'm out there in the middle of summer just with pants and
a fly rod, throwing it around downtown Grand Rapids.
But,
this is how I roll, man.
We catch some pretty good fish down through there.
And when you say bass, you going smallmouth, largemouth, both? What have you got?
Smallmouth. Yeah, primarily targeting smallmouth.
Okay.
Yeah,
Super cool.
And and this is just my opinion, but I think pound for pound, the smallmouth are the hardest freshwater fighting fish out there. You know, they're not going to take drag, but they're going to dig and dig and dig, and they will cork over an 8-weight rod. Even like your little 12-inch, 14-inch ones will just cork that thing over.
Yeah, they're a blast. They're not as pretty as a trout, but man, do they fight good.
They fight good.
Yeah.
You know? And some people may take issue with that. Some people think they're gorgeous fish, you know. And they're fun. All right, so tell me about the seasons, right? So we talked a little bit about when the steelhead start running. Like, walk me through the fall and then into the spring. What are the seasons for the different fish?
We'll just start first of the year, calendar year, January 1. January through about early March is strictly steelhead. Not much going on the bass side of things. Just very cold water conditions. When we get into that early mid-March time frame, we're either in our pre-spawn steelhead fishing time. So those fish are coming up, staging in shallower pockets behind gravel, just waiting for conditions to be good to spawn. And we'll fish those steelhead all the way through about early May, like late April, depending on water. We really start our smallmouth season come like mid-March, late March. And if we start seeing water temperatures increasing to the 40-degree threshold, like that mid-40, low 40-degree threshold, I mean, we're starting smallmouth fishing.
Really?
And we'll kind of go back and forth between smallmouth and steelhead for middle of March through early May, late April, like I said.
Now, how does that work? Like, if I can interrupt, how does that work? So if you got a couple different rods laying in the boat and, hey, this is a good smallmouth spot, switch to this?
So most of it, when we're talking to customers on the phone, we kind of try to establish what their expectations are or what they would like to do for the day.
Yeah.
So if they want to go more steelhead side of things, we go to like steelhead specific sections of the river. And if they're interested in small, and again, I'm just talking about like March and April timeframe.
Okay.
Then if they want more smallmouth, we go to different river sections. We don't really see too much commingling between steelhead and smallmouth areas during that March and early April timeframe, if you kind of know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But once we get into early May, it's purely smallmouth and pike. And really, to be honest, mostly just smallmouth all the way until October. I mean, our May, June, July, August, September.
Even I had trips in November for smallmouth.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we'll run bass all summer long. I leave for Alaska in the summer, so Dad takes the reins with everything and runs all the smallmouth side of everything. October is salmon and smallmouth. And then once we get into November, it's a little bit of bass fishing and then steelhead fishing all fall and winter long after November.
And so the steelhead come in super bright, chromed up, but then you've got holdovers, right? They stay in the system all winter. Is that right?
That is right. So I don't know true statistics, to be honest with you, but what I've heard is only about 30% of our steelhead, 40% of our steelhead come in the fall. So they'll come up from Lake Michigan. They'll feed on eggs all of October and early November from the salmon. And then they'll hole over in the river system all winter long. So even in the middle of January when it's cold outside, we can still fish for steelhead.
Yeah.
The steelhead will hold over in the winter or in the river all winter long. The fish that came in the river system in the fall are the first fish to spawn because they've been waiting all winter to spawn.
Sure.
And those fish typically spawn late February through mid-March. When we get into March time, we usually have rain events that bring the river up. And that's what brings in the rest of the steelhead from the big lake or from Lake Michigan. And they all spawn, the rest of them will spawn in late March through April. And then they're out of there and back to the lake.
And do those holdovers fight as good if they've been in the river system all over the wintertime? Do they start fighting better again in the spring when the temperatures warm up? Okay.
They do. That's exactly what happens. Colder water, they fight a little bit softer, a little slower, less aggressive. But when you get in the fall or the spring time frame, like you're saying, Steve, the energy of the fish picks up a little bit better.
Yeah, because I've caught some steelhead in the wintertime, and they can fight okay, but often they're lethargic, aren't they?
They're very lethargic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're still fun to go after, but
I always tell people they're easier to land in the winter.
Oh,
okay. We have so much wood here in West Michigan in our river systems that when
even
you're
in the Grand. Huh.
In the Grand a little bit.
Okay.
There's sections in our steelhead water and even in some of our smallmouth water. I mean, they're all structure orientated fish. They all sit near contour changes, log jams, stumps, rock piles. They're
Okay.
all orientated towards a lot of that structure. Yep.
So what happens, like condition wise, that brings the kings in first? What are you looking for there? River temps? What are you looking for?
River temps, most of it's lake conditions and wind direction. So with Lake Michigan and where we sit in West Michigan, if we get an easterly direction of wind, it blows the warmer water from our side of the lake towards the Wisconsin side. And that convection brings in the colder water from deep within Lake Michigan, and we get what's called a lake flip. So
Yeah.
we'll go from 60, 70 degree surface temperature on the shorelines in Michigan to like mid 40s, low 50s. And that's what draws those salmon and those steelhead in from the big lake closer towards the shore. So if we get those lake flips, that's when we start to see a lot of those salmon and steelhead pushing into the river.
Okay. And so sometimes is the river temperatures lower than the lake temperatures? Can that happen?
That can happen, yes. So that's a problem that we saw last year with our steelhead run is our rivers were in the 30-degree threshold when Lake Michigan was in the high 40s, low 50s degree temperature. So at that point, the fish never come to the river because the river's colder than what the lake is, and it's safer for them.
They want warmer?
They want a little bit more warmer water, and they're still orientated towards safety. I mean, if those fish aren't comfortable in the river, at least for steelhead, they're not going to come. If they don't want to come to the river, they don't feel comfortable, they'll drop back down through the system and just wait for it to be correct conditions in the springtime for them to come.
And you guys are doing a lot of salmon fishing on the Muskegon?
It's primarily salmons on the Muskegon. Yep.
Oh, it is. Okay. How well can you do up there on salmon?
If you're looking late October time frame, I mean, numbers are always irrelevant, it depends on years, angler capabilities and stuff. But I mean, you always get some really good shots at kings in October on the Muskegon,
Cool.
5, 10 fish some days, really, really sweet days. You're looking at 12 fish or so for hookups. I mean, it can be fun. It's a lot of fun.
What's the land percentage on a king? I bet they're a little harder.
It's pretty minimal sometimes. Like, you get guys that aren't as accustomed to fighting 20-pound fish on a fly rod. And I mean, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. If the fish wants to run, you got to let them run. And if people don't let the fish run, they're gone every time.
What do? They grab the line or they just
grab the line? People have this huge fish hooked on here and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to stop it. And then the fish is gone.
And what are you yelling at? What are you saying?
Let go of the reel, let go of the reel, let go of the reel.
Let it run. You have 200 yards of backing, and I can get on the engine.
So you will yell at your customers when you're doing that, huh? Okay,
firmly
good.
sometimes, yes.
Yeah,
cordially,
in a nice
but
way.
still firmly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I want to see you catch the fish, but I also,
Sometimes we're just barking orders, and then afterwards we apologize. But after you land it, they're like, "Oh man, that's okay. Just tell me what to do." All
keep
the time,
yelling at me. That was great.
Keep yelling at me. Keep yelling.
Do you guys use, the center pin thing? Are you guys doing that at all?
We do on occasion. Sometimes when we get into dead of winter scenarios, colder weather scenarios sometimes. I mean, if you're fishing in like 20 degrees, it's not fun touching line that's in the water the whole time. It freezes. And, we run a lot of the conventional gear side of things when it's cold outside. Sometimes when we're smallmouth fishing, we'll run Ned rigs, just to figure out where fish are.
What's that? What's a Ned rig?
It's a Ned rig. To be honest with you, it looks like a turd. And it's a little plastic worm thing, essentially, on a jig head. And you just drag and bounce it along the bottom. Conventional gear fishing. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's conventional because I wouldn't say a lot. Probably, I don't know, I'd say maybe 50-50, 60-40. It's fly, 60% fly and 40% conventional. And so it just depends. And so when you're in the colder water, you got to get it down. And so you're using leaded weight, whether it be on a conventional side or on the fly side. On the fly side, we're using circus peanuts, we're using leeches, just to get that down with a, depending on what system we're on. You could use a little heavier sink line or a little lighter sink line. It just depends. water depth and all that stuff. But that's pretty much in the early season for the smallmouth what we're using.
I mean,
Okay.
I ran a center pin trip on Sunday. I ran one yesterday.
Did you?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, you know, there's guys in our list of people, or even just from Grand Rapids. I mean, we have people that call that just sometimes don't want to fly fish and they just want to go fishing, and it's totally fine with us. You know, I mean,
Center pin's on a fly rod, though, isn't it? Isn't that like a typical?
kind of, sort
Not
of.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
like the center pin rigs are a free spooling reel on a noodle rod,
A
essentially.
noodle rod. Okay.
Yeah, like it's a 13 foot rod, but it's more like made for conventional gear fishing.
Okay. What's your setup on with a fly rod typically?
On the steelhead side of things, there's 3 techniques that we'll fish for them. The number one and the most productive way that we do it is fishing an indicator.
Oh, okay.
We row an indicator. You start at the top of a run. You throw a floating line on a 10-foot 7-weight and a bobber, or an indicator, as some people call it. And we just row those bobbers down the runs. And that's what I did all day today, just rowing a bobber and an egg or a nymph or something like that. The second way we do steelhead is spay fishing, 2-hand swing style fishing. One of the other ways we'll fish them is on a chuck and duck rig. It's a bottom bouncing technique. And we really only do that when we have high water. We have to get to the bottom where the fish are, and it's hard to do that when there's a lot of water coming down. But the 2 more popular steelhead ways we fish are floating lines and bobbers, and then the spay style fishing.
Okay. How often do you move around? You know, I've been steelhead fishing where the guides we're in a hole for an hour.
Oh,
We're
no,
not getting
dude.
anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's a mistake, huh?
So, I mean, again, it kind of depends. Fall time frame today, I ran a guide trip today, and we fished 14 miles of river today.
Wow.
Sometimes you have to move to find them. And there's times that you'll run a section, a program, and you're catching fish, and the next day you go there, they're gone because they're steelhead. They move. So you have to go find them. And yesterday when I ran a trip 2, I was in a scenario when I couldn't find them, and I have to go cover water to go look for them. And yeah, we fished like 12, 13 miles of river today. We fished a lot of water.
Yeah, it was because you got a motorized boat then?
Yes, yep. We primarily just run jet boats. Yep, like
Oh,
a
jet boats,
16,
okay.
18-foot jet boat. Yep.
We have 2 other boats too. We've got a row frame raft, which gets us into the smaller, tighter waters, and then we do have a drift boat as well too.
Okay. And so you're doing egg patterns as the steelhead are coming in behind the salmon.
Yep.
And they're looking for eggs. So eggs early on, and then you switch over to what? Are you throwing nymphs, and what else are you throwing?
I personally, for me, I primarily fish eggs, running different colors of eggs. You know, that's just the programs that I run. I still will fish nymphs
All winter, like all
all
winter.
winter. Yep, all winter.
Really? Okay.
I'm a firm believer that those fish are programmed to eat eggs. They're in the river, and we'll catch steelhead January, February. There's nothing spawning. There's no eggs coming down in January and February, and we still catch them on eggs. Yep.
What about like a big stonefly or something? That doesn't work?
Oh, yeah. Yep. You know, a lot of what I like to do is fishing an egg through a run first, and then changing my egg colors as I fish a run. And if I find that the fish are not willing to cooperate with eggs, my second one is going to nymphs. Big stoneflies, maybe even a hex nymph.
Sure.
When we get into our spring time frame for steelhead, our kings are hatching from their eggs out of the gravel. So in the springtime, we fish a ton of salmon fry. Just little baby tiny salmon that just hatched out of the gravel. And that's one of the biggest food sources for fish in the springtime is those salmon fry.
Huh. Just tell me about the salmon fry pattern.
Our kings spawn in the fall, and they die just like every other salmon. And in the springtime, those eggs hatch out of the gravel, and they come out of the gravel, and they're first called a par or an alvin. And those are those little tiny minnows that have the egg sacs around their throats. They'll grow into what's called a fry. That's about 2 inches, an inch or 2 inches long. And then they'll live into the river until a smolt stage. So once they're in that alvin to fry time frame, we fish a lot of those. Mm-hmm. flies that incorporate a lot of grizzly marabou, small barred feathers and things like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of my you were talking about flies earlier, but there's a fly that we fish in the spring. It's called a squirmy alvin. So like everyone's familiar with like a squirmy wormy,
Yeah.
like the little wormies. I'll tie them up in like a clear white squirmy tail and then use like an egg sac on the bottom of it. And that's one of my more favorite ones to throw in the springtime.
Super interesting. Can you take a picture of that and send it? I'd love to put that out on Instagram.
I
Unless
can,
it's
yeah.
Okay, it's not a secret, huh?
No, heck no. There's
Okay.
videos on YouTube on how to tie those things, man. I mean, none of it's a secret. I don't have my box near me because I'm at my dad's here, but I can definitely do that when I get back home to my boxes.
What's a decent day steelhead fishing on the Grand?
On the Grand, I mean, to be totally honest with you, depending on all time frames, if I can hook each guy a fish, that's a good day for me. If each guy in my boat can catch one, I'm very pleased with that. If you're in the fall, day by day, it varies. Some days in the fall, it's one or two. I've had days this fall already that I've hooked over a dozen. When you get in the wintertime, it gets a little bit more consistent for steelhead. The fish rarely ever migrate when the water gets cold. So if I can find an area that I'm hooking, say, 7 fish, I can usually consistently find those 7 fish again in the winter because they don't really move much. Springtime is when you find your numbers more times than not. And that's because the most amount of steelhead are in the river coming up to spawn in that springtime frame.
I feel like sometimes it's kind of hard to hit. I don't know. Is that right? I mean, I feel I've been up. It's been too early. It's been too late. Or the spring.
Gosh, yeah.
It's like this game, and you really got like a 4 to 6 week window where it's really good. Am I dreaming, or is that about right?
Yeah, there's people that book the same dates every single year with us, and some years they're 2 weeks early, some years they're a week late, and some years they're right on time. And those fish are so finicky in the spring; the conditions have to be perfect for them to come up here, and it's a really hit or miss time frame. But like you said, the spring season can last 4 to 6 weeks. Some years it lasts 2.5 weeks. It just depends on what Mother Nature throws at us in the springtime.
Well, I guess you just have to go fishing with you at least once a week for like 6 weeks.
It's so ironic.
Is that the answer?
It's so ironic, Steve. People always ask us when the best time to go fishing is. And to be honest, it's whenever you can go fishing. I don't know when the fish run. I don't know when they're going to do it. Just whenever you can go fishing is the best time.
Just with people's busy schedules and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's just, generally we know when they're going to run, but, again,
could be 10 days away, 10 days early, 5 days late, or 2 weeks. You just never know. It's a year by year type of thing.
We always generally say, if you want the most consistent, go in the winter. But most people are fair weather anglers and they want to go when it's warm. But it's really the most consistent fishing is going to be in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you what, did you guys tell your clients be darn sure you don't have a hole in your waders if you're coming in the winter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't want to be freezing out there in the middle of winter, man. You want to be nice and dry and warm.
No, but there was that one time when we were fishing the White, and he and I were on the White River. And we were floating down. Well, we were floating down in the drift boat, and he had his waders on, and I had my bibs on. And the White River is comparable. Probably a lot of your listeners will know about the Pere Marquette River.
Sure. Oh,
it's very comparable to the Pere Marquette River. And so there are literally frozen ice chunks.
There's icebergs floating down.
In the river.
Okay.
And he and I are fishing this because, we want to go fishing. We think it's going to be pretty good. He hooks into this steelhead and he looks at me and he goes, "This is a really good steelhead. Get the net. I'm jumping in and I'm going to chase it down river." And so he jumps in because he has his waders on. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I got the net, and we're parked a little close to the bank, and right next to me is shelf ice. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if he says he's got a good steelhead, there's chunks floating down of ice, I got to figure this out. And so, we really can't move the boat to the bank because of the shelf ice. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm running through the probability. If I jump in the water, there's a 100% chance I'll get wet. If I jump on the shelf ice, there's a 99.98% chance I'll get wet. So I jump onto the shelf ice, and clearly that cracks, and I go up to my waist in freezing cold water.
Bib overalls, not like
Bib,
waders.
Bib overalls.
Bib
Yep.
overalls.
Yep.
I
Oh,
am
my.
soaked to the bone, and he's going down river, and so okay, I've got the net, and so he ends up going down further down river, and I'm following him on the bank, and finally I just jump in and I net the fish, and that was probably one of the largest steelheads you've ever caught.
That was a nice fish. Yeah, it was a good fish.
How big? Did you weigh it?
15 pounds,
I don't
maybe?
know. 12 to 14, 13, 14. I don't know.
It was a good
Okay.
steelhead.
A lot of what we do is, at least personally for me, just take a picture of the fish, admire the fish, let the fish go. You know
That's
what
a
I
big
mean?
one. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
nice one. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I don't really, boast in weighing them or measuring them or anything.
There you
But
go.
but you definitely don't want to. Yeah, getting back to the original point, you want to make sure that you have waders on and can survive the cold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
First time I went steelhead fishing was on the PM, and I had an old pair of waders, and I was like, a little leak in there won't hurt anybody. I've never been so cold all my life.
Oh my
man. It
gosh,
was like
I know.
30-degree water in my boots all day long. It was, and the guy had a little heater at the front of the drift boat to
Uh-huh.
try to unthaw me, but man, it was. So that's like I stopped buying cheap waders after that one. I got a nice
Mhm.
pair of waders. So
Yeah, it pays dividends in the wintertime to have nice waders.
man, I just got my waders back from Sims. I wore holes in my heels of one of my boots. I think I must have had a rock in there. I was out west quite a
Yep.
bit this summer, and they said that's the last time we're going to repair your waders. And I'm like, oh crud,
Oh, man.
So
Yeah, they want you to get a new wear.
Yeah, they want you to buy more.
I don't know. Something about I don't dry them out good enough. I'm like, I don't know. So
I barely dry my waders, and sometimes
it's useful life. With Sims, it's useful life of the wader. It's not forever, right? They even told me like a useful life of a wader for a guide who wears them every day is like maybe one season.
Yeah, like less than a year, maybe even a year if you're lucky. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, Tom. So give me the lowdown. A fight compared to a king, a coho, and a steelhead. What's similar? What's different? What fights the best? Give me the lowdown.
Oh, I think hands down the steelhead will fight the best, particularly the early season steelhead. I mean, literally they're like lightning. And for me, that's probably the favorite time to fish, when they just come in dime bright and hold on tight. And
good luck.
And good luck, because you're going to lose more than you're going to land in that early season. But man, it is a ton of fun. And so for me, if I had to rank them, it's clearly a steelhead, probably followed by, I haven't really caught too much coho other than in Alaska, but probably a king, just for the sheer mass of the king. You can get 20, 25, 30 pound kings. And so, they're going to definitely, fight, and then probably followed closely by the coho.
Okay. They're all fun though.
They're all fun.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with fishing is it's the worst kind of addiction there is. It's intermittent reinforcement. It's like gambling. And all you want to do is just feel the bend in the rod, and you want to hear, you just want to fight a fish, and it's the intermittent reinforcement.
Yeah, I agree. There's something about it. That's for darn sure. All right. Well, I wanted to shift gears a little bit, Tom. I wanted to hear this story about you were a banker. Sounds like maybe you were hooked on fishing while you were a banker rather than a fisherman hooked on banking, I'm guessing. How did all that come about, where you went from banking to owning, this company?
Well, like all good things, it starts with a partnership that kind of went bad. And so, and I'm not ashamed to tell this story, by any means, but I was an owner in the Pere Marquette River Lodge, and we had a massive partnership falling out, of which Max got caught in the middle of through no fault of his own. And so, at that point, he wanted to be a fishing guide, and he wanted to, that's what he wanted to do for a career. He wanted to guide, he wanted to go to Alaska and all of that stuff. And so he came back, and, his world was shattered. And I looked at him and I said, what we're going to do is we're going to start our own guide service company. And we're going to start Werkman Outfitters. And so I really had no intention. I mean, I was in banking at the time and I enjoyed what I was doing. I was probably working for one of the best banks in Michigan as a business banker. So I lent money to businesses, and I figured, well, why not? We'll go for it. So for graduation, his grandpa, my dad, gave him a drift boat, bought a drift boat for him.
Like a big bow around it in the driveway. Come on outside,
Yeah,
Max. Check out.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, it was. I was pretty excited with it, but we planned it out with the Stealth Craft Group, the company Stealth Craft up here in Michigan, and my grandpa, my papa, my dad's dad bought me a drift boat.
Super cool. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so that kind of started the journey with everything, and so over the years we've the next thing that we needed to do was I think the first year we did maybe, I don't know,
like 12
guide trips,
yeah.
I think is what we did. And then the following year we knew that we needed to fish bigger water. We needed to get onto the Grand River and we needed a jet boat. And I said, we're going to buy a jet boat. And so I think the only time that we really ever had any type of argument where we didn't talk to each other for a few days was, is it going to be a tiller jet boat or is it going to be a center console
jet boat?
And
oh man, them's fighting words.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was. And so ultimately he won because he was an Alaska guide and knew what he wanted and did jet boats more than me. And so once we got the jet boat, then I started guiding, just on weekends and stuff like that. And eventually, it started to take more and more and more. And then particularly during COVID, I ended up spending a lot of time on the river guiding. Both Max and I did. And it just started growing to the point where it needed me, particularly if this business was going to become something, it needed me during the summertime when he was in Alaska to continue guiding. So I continued guiding through the summer, playing hooky here and there. I had a wonderful boss who said, just go and do what you need to do, but just make sure you get your work done. And it continued to grow. And a couple years ago, we decided Steve Kuick, who owned RiverQuest Charters on the Muskegon River, was looking to get out. He was a 26-year veteran of being a guide and running a guide operation, and actually had a lodge on there, the Muskegon River Lodge. Approached us and asked us if we wanted to buy it, and we said sure. So we worked out a deal a couple of years ago and bought it. And then just after the first of the year, a couple of my partners bought me out. And I got to say, through what started this business was a massive partnership falling out. A few of those partners and I have reconciled, and we're quite good friends nowadays.
Good.
With everything. We respect one another. We work very well together. We're businessmen first, and then, fishermen second. And so all of that has gone well. And then we opened up our fly shop, or will open up our fly shop mid-December in Ada, Michigan. And so the business has really just continued to grow. And I think one thing that I learned by being in banking for those 25 years is on how to run a business, particularly on the finance and accounting side. And I think what makes our relationship, Max and my relationship, unique is that we really do need each other, and we really understand boundaries and where to, defer for the final decision, but yet we each talk about the business as a whole. I mean, we've never really argued about anything, and I've always made it, my overall goal is, I've never pulled the dad card. I've never pulled the major partner card. I've never pulled the fact that, I've got a lot of, I've got the most amount at risk, and I've never pulled that, and nor will I. We just have this unique relationship where I mean, one can't survive without the other. And I think we both recognize that. He's more so he's got a lot of strengths on the fly tying side, the gear side, particularly when it comes to, the steelhead. I've got some good strengths on the warm water side. He's got really good strengths on the guide side because he's guided longer than I have. Just being up in Alaska, I wouldn't say longer, but more often because of being up into Alaska. He's got better contacts in the industry than I have nowadays. And we just recognize that we just need each other, and the partnership works very well.
What do you think, Max? Sounds pretty good to me.
I mean, he nailed it on the head. I mean, it's a two-way streak with what we have here. And it's like Dad said, I can't do it without him, and he can't do it without me. I mean, we need each other in the whole operation that we have for Werkman Outfitters.
Right at the beginning of the podcast when we were talking, it's like you don't get one, you get both, and that's really and that really is what defines the relationship that we have, not only within this business but with each other. And I have 2 other kids. I got a son and I've got a daughter, and so I got to be very conscious about we get together for when they're all around, that we're just not always talking about the business,
about fishing,
because it's easy to do. With everything, and so that they stay included in it as well.
Max, what have you learned from your dad?
I'd honestly say the one thing that I can take away is always do what you want to do. Just whatever you want to do. For my case, it was fishing. Follow your dream, do what you want to do. Don't do what other people think you should do. Just follow your dream and do what you want to do.
Yeah, and Tom, you sort of followed that, maybe your own advice with the banking thing, right? Because you ended up doing this fishing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've had calls, by colleagues that are still in banking asking me if I would be interested in coming back. And there's just no way. I mean, we're all in, and I get to work with my son, which is
super cool.
Which offers, I think with that, we get to see sides of each other that we wouldn't normally see because we do work closely together. I think what he sees in me is a little more vulnerability than what I would probably portray as a dad, just because, there's, because I learned from him. And I think he learns from me on certain things, but, I think he sees too some fears, that are there, but he also sees strength. It's like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go and do it. And this is how we're going to do it. And so it's just this really unique relationship that I'm very fortunate at this stage in my life to be able to have with him. And there's nothing that can break that bond. We got a really strong partnership. And so I'm very thankful for that.
Super cool. Super cool. Max, I got to ask you, what's the hardest thing about guiding?
The hardest thing, I'd say you get in your seasons, you get in your time frames that you're running a lot of trips, especially my Alaska season, and it's just the day in, the day out grind. Day in, day out, over and over and over, running trips. I mean, there comes a point when it's tiring, I mean, it's a misconception that you see a lot of times, that at least Dad and I see, is like, oh, you get to go fishing every day. Not the case. I mean, we're
still fishing, but we're not making the cast.
We're not
physically fishing.
And I mean, it's a grind. The grind is one of the challenging things, even in Michigan here, when you start your day, for at least us, for when we stop moving after we're done with everything, I mean, they're 12-hour days for us.
Right.
I mean,
really?
You drive an hour and a half one way to the river to fish. You fish your 8 to 10 hours with your customers. You drive an hour and a half home. It takes an hour to clean your gear, clean your boat, get your lunch ready for the next day, and then you do it again, and then again and again. And I think for me, that's just the most challenging thing, is just the daily grind. Mm-hmm.
How do you sort of pull yourself out of that?
Honestly, what pulls me out of it's the fish, because I get to go fishing every day. When I get to go see fish and catch fish and meet really cool people and fun people, energetic people, I mean, that's what pulls you out of kind of that guide rut, so to say, sometimes. I mean, like I had a 14-year-old today that caught adult steelhead today throwing fly rods. I mean, that's what pulls you out of those funks and those grinds and those mentalities that you have, is you get to watch really cool people and fun people catch some really special fish. And then it's fun.
Put a smile on her face, huh?
Oh man, that kid was so ecstatic when he caught one adult steelhead today, and it was so cool to watch him catch it. It was so cool.
Fight pretty good? Chromed
up?
Oh
my gosh. It was honestly, man, it was the coolest thing. We were rolling bobbers over a run, and there's one specific log jam that the fish were sitting by, at least yesterday for me too. and his name was Jack, 14, and he throws his indicator out, and I row down with it, and I'm like, man, Jack, I'm like, this looks so perfect, dude. And sure as heck, man, it goes past that log, and the fish grabbed it, and we were just jumping and hooping and howling. I mean, it was a ton of fun. Yeah,
that's
it was
cool.
sweet.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Tom, so you've been on quite a journey with all this, through the banking thing and loving fish and everything. Like, what have you learned about yourself through all this?
I think that I've learned about myself is that I think at my stage in the game, I'm willing to take more risks to achieve the things that I want to achieve in life, and that I'm not afraid of taking that risk to do that. I think that also too, I've learned to believe in myself much more than what I did in the past, and knowing that the skill sets that I've developed over, being in the banking world, in the business world for all those years, I can, and working for somebody, I can take that skill set, take the risk and not be afraid, and just start to grow the business that it needs to grow to really, thrive and become, just a well-respected business in West Michigan, not only on the guide side, but on the fly shop side as well.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that fly shop. Thanks for all you're doing for all of us anglers. Love the fact that your businesses are up and running.
Hey, we love helping people. That's why we do it, to get people into the sport.
All right. Favorite shore lunch?
It's a tricky one. I mean, favorite? Are you talking like cooking for clients lunch, or
whatever? Cooking for clients lunch. What's your favorite shore lunch?
There's one that I've been doing lately that's, I mean, it's nothing extravagant, but I've been liking it. We've had a lot of wind and like rain lately and stuff. I've been doing pulled pork sandwiches and mac and cheese lately. Put it in some tin foil. You pre-cook it obviously before you hit the river, and I don't know. That's just one that I've been doing lately that I've been really liking, is like a pulled pork sandwiches and mac and cheese.
Okay. Mac and cheese, you got like some kind of a stove you heat things up on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Dad and I both bring grills in the boat.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Most of the lunches we pre-cook before we go there. That way it doesn't take an hour to cook lunch. But yeah, we do hot lunches in the wintertime, and in the summertime we mostly do just like cold cut sandwiches and things like that. But yeah, in the wintertime we bring a grill out there, and even all the group trips that we do, it's a lot of fun. We all pull over on the side of the river together. The big group gets out, and we just do like a community type of shore lunch together. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm a customer of yours. We've been fishing all day, and I'm getting ready to say goodbye. And I say, all right, where would you suggest I go for? I want to get a beer and something to eat tonight. I'm in, I don't know, Grand Rapids area. Where would you send me?
Founders Brewing. Founders. I like Founders, baby.
Well, what about the Dirty Shame and Ada?
Yeah, well, see, it depends. Grand Rapids is a big area, I mean, if we're fishing in Ada, Dirty Shame, the Gravel Bottom's a great bar too in Ada. Yeah. Downtown Grand Rapids, Founders is great. It's a local beer company from Grand Rapids. Maybe a lot of your listeners know they brew the all-day IPAs and the solid gold beers. I mean, shoot, we can buy all-day IPAs in Alaska. I mean, they're pretty popular beers.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I have yet to have a Founders beer I didn't like. It's all good. I know,
right? Yeah.
It is all good. I've eaten that place. That is a great spot.
It is, yeah. Great sandwiches, great subs, cool place to eat.
Yeah.
If we're in Newaygo, the Newaygo Sportsman's Bar.
Ah, okay.
Great place to go eat. It's a classic Northern Michigan bar. They got deer mounts and sports playing on the TVs, and I mean, it's a great place. Yep.
How about that? Oh, that's super cool. All right. One other question. Art prize. Tell us about Art prize, because Grand Rapids is famous for it.
Yeah, it is. And I think for the 2 weeks that it's there, I try to avoid it.
Mm-hmm. It's a busy time in Grand Rapids for Art prize. Yep.
It's a busy time. And, I mean, depending on, where we're going, I mean, you can't avoid it.
But
they decorate the river, don't they? Yeah, I was going to say, the river.
They do some cool stuff.
They do some really cool stuff.
There's some of the times that Art prize is going on, there's still steelhead downtown. So it's cool when they do the sculptures in the river and you can like get next to them. Like it's kind of a cool little thing that Grand Rapids does with that.
I've seen that. But they give away like $250,000 to the winner, don't they? The artist?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a nationally recognized. I mean, people come from all over. There's like, I want to say like 250,000 people, or I heard more, something like that, descend into Grand Rapids over the 2 weeks to come. And I mean, there's a lot of cool art that comes there, and it's a boon for the city. I mean,
it's something unique to the Grand Rapids does
It
too.
is.
I mean, you don't ever hear of any other major metropolitan
No.
cities doing
No.
things like that. It's kind of a cool thing.
In every office building, it seems like has got, like, in their lobby, they've got artwork,
Mhm.
and you kind of visit. That's where all the artwork is. It's spread out all through town. Is that right?
It's exactly what it is. Yep. I mean, all throughout the city of Grand Rapids, there's artwork all over the place, in the rivers and the buildings, all along the streets and everything. It's cool.
And I just try to avoid it because of the crowds. I don't like crowds in general, but it's a great thing for Grand Rapids. I mean, Grand Rapids is a very progressive city. It's growing, and it's fun to be a part of. I mean, our little business being a part of a community that continues to grow and thrive.
Thanks for being on the show, guys. Great.
Thanks for
job.
Hey,
having
thank
us,
you, Steve. It's been a lot of fun, man. I've really enjoyed
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
really a
Yeah.
pleasure.
it went by fast.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I know. I just looked at the clock and I was like, shoot, we've been on this for like an hour already. I was like,
An
I can
hour
keep
and
talking.
13 minutes to be exact. Yeah. So, how can people get in touch with you if they want to talk about a trip?
So, going forward from here, the shop's going to be the best way of contact.
So just go to WerkmanOutfitters.com, and that's WERKMAN Outfitters.com, and it'll have all the information on there. Or just follow us on Instagram. We pump out a lot of stuff on social media.
We do a lot on Instagram. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, I wish you both extraordinary success in all your adventures to follow. I'm sure there'll be many. And folks, thank you for listening. It's really an honor and a pleasure to bring these shows to you all. I can't tell you how grateful I am. This is a labor of love for me, and you can tell by talking to these guys, it's a labor of love for them too, bringing great fishing experiences to you. We'll be sure to post Tom and Max's contact info in the Destination Angler show notes, and then hopefully we'll get some exclusive pictures of your favorite fly picks, and some pictures of the area that you're fishing, and some big fish and smiling people. We'll put those out on Facebook and Instagram. As always, you can DM me or email me with comments and suggestions at shaig@destinationanglerpodcast.com. If you like the show, please share it with a buddy. As always, our music is by A Brothers Fountain, a really cool band out of Colorado. By the way, I interviewed those guys, and I'm going to put them on the show here pretty soon. Did a really fun interview with them, so look forward to that, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again soon. Tight lines, everybody.
Well, I'll go from the land to the shining sea. But I know there's more to life than what the eye can see. Yeah.